Excuse me for looking rough, but I just woke up and I cannot wait to start this video. To be fair, I also had a rough night's sleep, so I look double rough. Anyway, I should probably open a curtain so I have a bit more light in here. Woo! Look alive, baby! Oh, I look worse. Anyway. What was I saying? It's winterween. Hi, how are you doing? I'm chaotic. Can you tell I just woke up? But it's winterween, which is a readathon that I'm always so excited to participate in. It is a spin-off from Summerween, which is a readathon held by Gary Reads in the summer to bring kind of, you know, the Halloween seasonal reading to summer, and then the winter variant, winterween, which we're doing currently, is the same but for winter, except if you live in the southern hemisphere, I guess, because then winterween's in summer and summerween's in winter. Anyway, I'll leave Gabby's YouTube channel as well as the announcement video for this particular round of the readathon in the description, so you can go check it out for all the information. Although by the time you're seeing it, it's over, so it doesn't really matter. Yes, because you can participate next time. Anyway, this is my favorite readathon. I love it so much. I have participated for a couple of years now, and yeah. What's important is for winterween, we have prompts. We have, I believe, 5 reading prompts. They're not that difficult to complete, and I do try to hit them all every readathon. I failed at it last year, I think. Either summerween or winterween, I missed a prompt, but I'm going full throttle this week. Anyway, I made a TBR. There's 6 books. All of them hit at least 1 prompt. I think most of them hit 2 at the most. At the least, I don't know what I'm saying. Jesus Christ, this is bad. But I also know myself, and I'm not great at sticking to TBRs. If I read things that aren't on this list of 6, I apologize. But that's the deal. Yeah. Today is gonna be fun because I have nothing on. It's storming outside, so it's not fun because it's the windy kind. I mean, to be fair, the thunder and rain kind also isn't fun. Like, it's the wind kind. Who likes those? Anyway. I have nothing on. The only thing I want to do today is watch People We Meet on Vacation, because that came out on Netflix today. So I'll probably leave that until the evening because I like watching a movie in the evening. That's quite literally all I have on. So let's try and read as much as I can. I have been pondering over what my first read for the readathon should be, because I've been excited for this, you know. So I've been counting down the hours, and therefore I've been thinking, what do I want to start with? And I think the best way to start is with Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, because this is the only vampire book on my TBR, to be completely frank. And that's like the main theme of the readathons, of course. You want to do some vampires. Also, it has a red cover, so it hits 2 prompts. Also, it's a physical read. I feel like doing this readathon, I tend to focus on like ebooks a lot, so to knock off a physical read from my physical TBR might be nice. It's also on my top of TBR for 2026, so it'd be good to get knocked off because of that as well. And yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. It is 350 pages. That's less than I expected, because these pages are tiny, but they are absolutely filled to the brim. So I feel like I'm a bit nervous for this, but I'm also really excited for this. I love the TV show, so that's why I wanted to pick up the book. So here we are. Let's see if it holds up. Hi, so it's the evening, and I wasn't planning on updating you for the first time this late, but I really, this afternoon, started to feel that I didn't sleep well. But I did read Interview with the Vampire, at least a little bit. I read 90 pages, which is actually more than I thought I did, so congrats to me. This so far is pretty dense, hence why I was struggling with it. But if you don't know what Interview with the Vampire is about, honestly, the title just says it. There isn't really much of a plot to it. It is a vampire called Louis de being interviewed about his life as a vampire, basically. I believe he got turned in like the 1790s somewhere, and that's what this book is about. It generally is just that. I wish I could tell you there's more to it. There's not, at least not so far, but I do have to say that I am at a point in the book where like a character got introduced, and from what I remember of the show, and as much as it is like very different from the show, so far it has hit like the major themes and stuff really well. So I think it's gonna continue with that, because in the show, when this character gets introduced, I feel like shit starts getting good, and so I feel like, you know, I've read the prelude, you know. So I'm very excited to see where it's gonna go. But yeah, like I said, it's very different from the show, which I knew. I don't know if that's because I'm looking at it through the lens of the show, but I can also see why this is considered so queer coded. Although I do have to say that the relationship between Lestat and Louis at this point in this book is very different from what it is like in the show, and that's keeping me like very intrigued. And yeah, I don't know, I'm having a good time reading this. I feel like it's very atmospheric, and I felt like right from the first page felt like completely sucked into it. But like I said, I didn't sleep well last night, and I started to feel that around the 90-page mark, and so I stopped reading because my brain was just going to explode if I read one more word. And I feel like, especially because this book is a bit more dense and like slower, that definitely didn't help with that. But I am very excited to continue reading with this tomorrow. So I put this down earlier in the day than I expected, and I watched People We Meet on Vacation, which was great. I had to watch it today anyway. I mean, I didn't have to, but I wanted to watch it today anyway. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great adaptation. It does definitely make some changes to the story, at least from what I remember, because People We Meet on Vacation is the first Emily Henry that I read, so it's been a while. But I feel like I remember the story well enough to, like, of course, see the big changes to it, but I think it does so in a way that generally is conducive, of course, to the different medium, and I think it's really well done. It's very well casted. Oh my god, Emily Bader as Poppy, so magnetic. I could not take my eyes off her, and I loved every second she was on the screen, which luckily was most of the movie. I will say, I am tired, but I'm a bit rejuvenated, and Gary Reads is about to do reading sprints in like 10 minutes, so I will be watching that, and then I think I am gonna be reading one of my ebooks. I think I might read the Rachel Hawkins, because that's what I'm most interested in right now, because I'm presuming this will be a bit more quick, more fun, and therefore, you know, will keep my brain a bit more engaged. Good morning, it's the next day, and I know I said I shouldn't vlog anymore right when I woke up, but here I am. Anyway, I crashed out really early last night. I was so tired, so I only ended up watching one of the sprints, like participated in one of the sprints, and I read like 18% of the Storm by Rachel Hawkins. I'm really liking this, so what I'm doing is now watching the rest of the sprints and reading the rest of the book. So that's what I'm doing. Hi. Okay, let's do a proper update for today, because I don't know what that morning was. But how are we doing? It's Tuesday. It's the second day. I'm reading along. Like I said, I did crash relatively early last night. I was so tired. Oh my god. I really need my sleep. I've noticed that over the past couple of days. Today, I have been reading a bit more, obviously. I am currently at 46% of The Storm by Rachel Hawkins, so I thought that was an appropriate time to give you an update, you know? So this book takes place in a small town that is kind of known to be hit by storms and hurricanes very often, and it got even more infamous in the 80s when, after one of these storms, the son of a governor was found dead on the beach. And first presumption was that he was just hit by the storm. Sadly enough, happens all the time, but his father, the governor, then pushed kind of for it to be investigated more, because he didn't think it was just a storm. He was sure it had to be murder, and that's how local 19-year-old girl Lo got involved in this, because like the guy that was found dead was having an affair with her, and of course they blamed it all on her. Even though she was found innocent in court, she has spent her entire life kind of having to defend herself, because everyone still thinks that she did murder this guy. And now, of course, the book is set in present day, and we are following Genevieve, I believe her name is. I could be wrong. I generally am blanking on the main character's name, but she is running a local inn that is like, has been in her family for generations, and used to be like the only hotel in this town, so it used to be very popular, but now she's kind of like struggling to keep it afloat. Well, she gets a email from a writer who is actually asking if he can stay for like an indefinite amount of time at her hotel, and she's like, I can't pass up this money, so she ends up taking it. And this writer is actually coming alongside Lo to write a memoir about Lo's life and kind of put her story out there of what happened. And the main character like is very involved with this, and not necessarily because she like has anything to do with like the story, like cares about it, but because she thinks that if this book gets popular, it will bring a lot of business to her. But as things unfolding, she realizes that she might have more of a connection to things than she realized. So there you go, that's the premise for this book. And I have to say, with Rachel Hawkins, like her mystery thriller books, this is the third one I've read by her now. They are always very fun, quick reads, and there is no exception to that. I'm flying through this, I'm having a good time, it's very entertaining. But The other two that I've read ended up being 3 stars, and I feel like this might be going in the same direction, because even though I'm enjoying myself, I think I figured out what actually happened all those years ago, just kind of the mystery of the book. I fear I figured that out within the first chapter, and that was me on like 2% brain power, and I figured it out. So, and the more I keep reading this book, the more it is confirming my suspicions. And if that's really what it's gonna be, I'm gonna be so disappointed, because that was too easy to figure out. Oh my god. But for the rest, I have a really good time with this, and I'm excited to keep reading it. But my iPad is dying, and I read my ebooks on my iPad, so that needs charging. So I'm still watching the reading sprints, so as that continues, I will be switching back to Interview with the Vampire, which I'm also really excited to get back to, because I was really enjoying this yesterday, so excited to continue reading that. But first, I do have to film a video, and then tonight we're going to a comedy show, so that's also taking like a bite out of my time. But that's the plans for today. Hopefully I will get lots of reading on, and maybe finish my first book for the readathon. That would be nice. And yeah, I'll see you when I have something else to update you about. Hi, it is Sunday. It's almost 11 p.m. and I'm about to go to bed, but I felt like I should update you because I haven't yet today. But yesterday I didn't end up reading as much as I wanted to. I only got to page 124 in Interview with the Vampire because my grandparents unexpectedly came by to visit, so I took a chunk out of my day that I was not expecting to give away, you know? And then, actually, fun fact, I also got a notification from my library app that a ebook I had put on hold was in, you know. So I only had a problem that was at my limit for ebooks I can lend out, so you know that wasn't really beneficial for me, because I had to turn in a book before I could lend out my hold, if that makes sense. And luckily one of the books on my TBR for this month was from an ebook from the library, so I spent all day today binging that book. And let me tell you, it's not a book to be binged, but I read A Taste for Poison, 11 Deadly Molecules and the Killers Who Used Them by Neil Bradbury. This is a non-fiction book, and kind of, as the subtitle says, it's about 11 different poisons and basically just how they work, because it is written, I believe, by a chemist, but like exemplified through different murder cases obviously that use these poisons. And I thought it would be like a fun non-fiction read, like a fun, like, you know, a thematic non-fiction read for this readathon. I read this all day today, and like luckily it isn't like the biggest book, so I didn't manage to complete it just now. But like I said, it's not really meant for binging, and my brain hurts right now from like all the information I just soaked in. But I did quite like this book. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's really interesting and also just really well explained. I think the author did a great job of explaining like the scientific processes behind these things in a way that's understandable, but also not like too dumbed down, you know. And I felt like I genuinely learned a lot, and these murder cases were just like a great way to kind of like have a hook, you know. Also like how those sections were told. I was going to spend the rest of my day trying to finish The Storm, but I'm tired, and like I said, my brain exhausted after learning that much. So that's for tomorrow. Hi, so it's Monday, day 4 for winterween already, and I'm making bad progress because I've only finished 1 book, and that was yesterday. And I forgot to tell you it fits the prompt of to read a book in the dark, because I was on my lazy vibe yesterday, so I just sat in the dark the whole day reading that book, and it worked. Anyway, I have spent today reading Interview with a Vampire. I quite only have 50 pages left, but this is good. Like, the right where I am, I want to say it's the good part, but like it's the stressful and sad part. But it's the part where I hated to have put this down, but I had to go to dinner, so there we go. So my first goal for tonight is to finish this book. Let's go. And then hopefully, considering actually I'm like 50 pages removed from the ending now, because it's like a little past 8 p.m, so hopefully I'll get this done before 9, because if I do, according to my Kindle app, I only have like 2 hours left of The Storm as well. So that means 2 books finished today if I get to do that. So that's kind of the plan, and hopefully it'll work out. Anyway, I'd have to say kind of my thoughts on this book, because I just said where I am right now. But I have to admit that even though I love Lestat, the storyline in Paris, let's say without spoiling anything, is easily my favorite. I felt that way with the show, I feel that way now as well with the book, even though it's very different. I feel like I was gonna wait to talk about this until like the very end of the book, because there are some things of the show that I'm very curious to see what this is gonna do in 50 pages with. But I have to say, reading this book has given me greater appreciation for the show, because I generally think it's better than the book. No offense, but like something I'm missing with this book is kind of like the depth that the show really like shines with. I think of these characters. I feel like in his narrative, Louis in this book just kind of goes from one moment to the next, and kind of like, okay, but like you have a completely different attitude towards things now. How did that change? What's going on? And also, it's not necessarily because he's like bad at storytelling. It's because generally, even like now in Paris, there are some things that happen, and like only in like a week's time, like we get mentioned that it's only been a week, and I was like, oh. And I feel like the show takes its time to drag that out more, to add more depth to that, and to have it develop a bit more like slowly, I guess, because this is not a fast-paced book, but that's the best way I know to explain it. And therefore I think it's better, because it takes what's already in here and just adds more to it. Like it adds the depth to it, really lets it all grow and develop, and makes you like really feel more than the book does, in my opinion. I still really like this because I do like the base story of Interview with the Vampire. I think has proven my obsession with the show, and I feel like the show doesn't really change much about the base story of Interview with the Vampire. And I do think, despite this being like a very kind of like slower, a bit more dense read, because generally it's just Louis talking for the entire book, nothing else happens. Considering that, I still think it is a very compelling and like engaging read, and especially once we get to Paris, which I knew was my favorite part of the story, but still, once we get to Paris, I followed through those pages. But even before then, I think the themes and such discussed in it is so interesting, and especially Louis' relationship to vampirism, so interesting, because he has a lot of like difficulties with the fact that he's a vampire, and with killing in particular, and his view on death and life and humanity and stuff like that. And I think all of that is really interesting and a bit more showcased, like not showcase, but like it feels a bigger part of this book, because I feel like Louis talks about it more. Well, in the show it's kind of more subtly shown, if that makes sense. So it feels like a more feels like a bigger part of the book than does the show, but like technically it does the same thing, you know, just through different formats. But yeah, as I said, I'm at a tense bit, so I'm very excited to get back to it. You already know most of my thoughts on this book. I fear once I finish these last 50 pages I won't have that much extra to say, so it'll be a short update, and then I'll be finishing The Storm hopefully as well. Hi, so I finished Interview with the Vampire and just knocked myself in the head with it. Give it 4 stars. I really liked it. I think I gave you most of my thoughts, you know, in my last update, but there we go. This is a horrible angle. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I finished this 4 stars. Really liked it. And I'm sorry for like all the comparisons to the show. But I'm reading this with the mind frame of like a huge fan of the show. And that's like why I wanted to check this book out. I know it's gonna piss some people off, but oh well. This fits the prompt to read a book with a vampire in it. So there we go. It also has a red cover, so I could use it for that as well if I need to double up. But actually, I'm already going to tell you my main read for tomorrow is going to be Listen for the Lie by Meet and Tara, and this has a red cover, so I'm going to use it for that prompt, so hopefully I don't need to double up. And yeah, I actually really want to read The Vampire Lestat now. I don't know if I should wait to order that until I've seen the show or not, but part of me, like the way this ended, I want to know more, so we'll see. Either way, I am going to be continuing on with The Storm now. It is a bit later than I predicted it would be, so I don't know if I can still finish this tonight, but we're gonna try. It's 11 p.m. I finished The Storm in time that I wanted to, because I like going to bed, like going to sleep at 11 p.m. I've been in bed longer, you know that. But anyway, I am giving this book 3 stars, just as I predicted. It just feels like a disappointment, because I was right. I predicted the twist very early on, and I can't believe how predictable it just ended up being. But like always, it is just like a really fun and like entertaining quick read, so I can't give it anything lower than a 3. But I have to say that towards the end it kind of felt a bit dragged out, and yeah, like I said, the reveal was just super predictable, so that was a little disappointing. But this checks off to read a thriller or horror book, because it's a thriller. And yeah, hi, another day, another book to talk about. Today we're talking about I'm reading. Listen to the light. Maybe it'll tell me, wow, this has been a mess. I also washed my hair, hence why it's wet. But I am about halfway through this book, a little bit less actually, because my copy has like 217 pages, and I'm at page 150, so it's technically a little under halfway through, but like looks like the middle to me. And this is a thriller book, mystery thriller book that follows Lucy, who 5 years before the start of the novel, her best friend got murdered, and kind of all arrows lead to her, yet not enough arrows for it ever to have gone to trial, but still everyone in her small town believes she did it, but like she doesn't remember anything from that night, so like she wouldn't be able to tell you anything. And now at the start of this book, so 5 years later, a podcast has started that is trying to uncover what really happened that night, and at the same time Lucy is called back to her small town for her grandma's 80th birthday. So it looks like things aren't staying in the past for longer anymore. And yeah, I am halfway through, and I actually don't really know how to feel about this, because I feel like at this point it is kind of turning into a bit of a different book than the first half was, but I find this a little bit difficult to get into. I don't really particularly like Lucy's POV. I feel like the way that's written just feels off to me. I don't know what it is about it, because I feel like I don't know enough about writing and language to be able to articulate that, but something about the writing just feels off to me, and it's not gripping me the way I thought it would. But I do really like the podcast parts, which is why, because we are getting excerpts on the podcast, and this is actually really gripping me, and it's really interesting, and I feel like most of like the interesting stuff so far has happened in these bits, and those generally have me gripped. So I am presuming it's just the way like Lucy's POV is written that's bothering me, and not just the writing in and of itself. Like I said, I feel like where we are now, like some like smaller reveals have made, some things have come to light that I feel like that were like, okay, these were never that well hidden, yet nobody has discovered them until this guy doing this podcast, so that's raising questions. And yeah, I feel like there was definitely twists also in Lucy's narrative, because I feel like at this point, like, she's not remembering anything from that night, but throughout these past 5 years she's suppressed a lot that had to do with her best friend, just because of like all the trauma that comes around with it. And I feel like at this point in the book, and that's why there is a change in narrative, I feel like for Lucy, it's starting to feel like a different book. She is starting to let those memories of her best friend kind of come to the forefront again. I think she isn't fighting them as strongly anymore. And like I said, it's not like she's remembering anything from the night, because that's definitely still like a thing blocked off, but just like general life bits that she has like tried her best to like kind of like push to the back of her head or come to the forefront. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like I will only be able to give you a proper thoughts on this book once I finish it. Hello, it is almost 10 p.m. I did not even realize it was that late, but I did finish Listen for the Lie today, which means it's another challenge checked off. This one I already told you is for the red book cover, obviously. I don't like it. I give it 2 stars. This book felt so incredibly dull, and then the reveals just felt so cliche to me. I don't know. Like I said, I did quite like the podcast in it, but I feel like as the book continued, we got less and less of that. And I don't know, it's not like I was bored, but it just felt so dull and like kind of like lifeless to me. So it wasn't my favorite. I do have some things to do right now, just like some administrative things on my laptop that I've been putting off, but I can't anymore now because it will be way too much if I do. So I'm in the middle of a rewatch of Bridgerton for the new season coming out. I don't know why I did that. That was purely on an impulse, but I did it. So I'm on season 2 right now. I've only seen the first episode. And like I said, it's a rewatch. I've seen all of these before. So then I'm gonna put that on while I do these things. And then if I have time left over in the day, I am gonna get started on The Last Session by Julia Barnes. Actually, you read the writing retreat by this author for a winterween or a summerween in the past, and I remember really liking that despite it getting kind of like mixed reviews. So I was very excited for this new book by Julia Barnes last year, but then I saw no one talking about it, so I never really ended up getting around to it. But now with winterween, it is a perfect excuse, I would think. We'll see if I'll actually get around to it today, otherwise it's my read for tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not excited about this update. It's the next day, welcome to my living room, and as expected, I didn't read anything more yesterday. In fact, what I had to do ended up taking way longer. So thank God I didn't push that off even more, because then it would have been more. So there we go. If for reference, I told you I was gonna watch Bridgerton and I was on season 2 and I had watched the first episode already. I only have 1 episode left at this point. And it's not because I got distracted, it's because I generally had that much to do. Also, forgot how much I love Kate and Bridgerton. So, there we go. Anyway, today is a new day and it's not been going well. Hence why I'm not excited to do this update. I have been reading the last session with Julia Barnes. It's been rough. I'm halfway through and it's taken me most of the day. Like, oh my god, this book is such a slog. I feel like I've been reading this forever and I'm only halfway through. Nothing interesting has really happened. And there's so much talking with stuff and I'm just like, is this relevant? Like, generally, will this be relevant? Because I don't think so. But basically, in this book, we follow our main character, Thea, and she is a social worker at a psych ward. And one day, a random woman gets brought in, and they don't know who she is, but she's like so in shock that she like doesn't talk. And then while talking about her, and then, well, shortly after that, she also, like that same day, Tia also, when she gets home, gets a message from her best friend from middle school, I believe, being like, hey, we're about to have a 20-year reunion, please come. And this kind of starts to bring up memories from the time in her life. And that's when she remembers that this woman that came into the psych ward has been looking familiar to her, because of like going back to her middle school self, which like she goes back to their mental because like that wasn't a good time for her. But going back to those memories, she realizes that the reason she recognized this woman in the psych ward is because she's an actress who was in like her favorite movie as a like teenager. So she tells her bosses and they end up talking to her and she ends up like coming out of shock. And only a few days after that, she signs herself out of the psych ward. Except her parents were supposed to come pick her up, but her parents did, but they were not her parents. So like 2 adult people showed up with like IDs that are correct for like who her parents would be, and she left with them willingly. But then like a little while later, her actual parents showed up. It's like, oh shit. And at first it's like a little hoopla around it, but most people brush it aside immediately because this actress has like a history of kind of leaving her parents in the dust and disappearing. Like she did that as well in the past, but something about it doesn't sit right with our main character Tia, and that's how like through her own investigating she ends up stumbling upon this like relationship retweet where basically this couple who is claiming that if you retweet with them, you can fix all the issues you've ever had in a relationship and around romance and stuff like that. So Tia decides they have like a weekend retreat coming up and she decides to just like take the plunge and go there and see if maybe she can figure out what actually happens to this actress and if she is involved with this. And it is reading very cult like and there have been like other characters as well to retweet who are like, this sounds like a cult a little bit. So I think we're viewing full cult by the end of this, but it's been so boring so far, and I'm not having a good time. I want to finish it because from what I remember in the writing retweet, that one also kind of like that's a very intriguing mystery until like the halfway mark when it gets bonkers, and that's where it lost a lot of people. But I loved it. I thought it was really enjoyable. So now that I'm halfway mark of this, like it hasn't been an intriguing mystery up until this point. I feel bored up until this point, but I'm hoping that maybe the second half will also get bonkers and at least get a little bit of entertainment out of that. But we'll see. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what to do anymore. I really don't, because I finished the last session by Julia Barnes right before dinner. Give it 1 star. My brain already wants to reject it. It's like, nope, we didn't read that. This was so boring. And I do have to say that towards the end it did get a little bonkers, but not in a good way. Like I was questioning my sanity reading the book towards the end because I was like, what are we doing? And then in the acknowledgements the author does mention like some of the things that she was trying to say, like around cults and also white supremacy for some reason, even though none of that was in this book. I was like, are you sure that's what you wanted to do with this book? Is that, I didn't see it. I really didn't. So I don't know. I feel like this was just, I don't know, I feel like I lost brain cells reading this. That sounds so mean to say, but that's generally how I feel. Otherwise I wouldn't have given it a 1 star. I feel like I'm very picky with my 1 stars, you know? I feel like typically in a book, if I finish it, there was something about it that I liked, so I tend to give it 2 stars. But like this, I don't know why I finished it. on Good Hope only. But this does mark off the last prompt that I need to, which is to read a 2025 release I didn't get around to. I wish I didn't get around to this one at all. Like, oh my god. But that checks off all the prompts. I do have to say, I did have one more book on my TBR, which is another nonfiction read, which I'm still interested in reading, but my brain needs something fun, something enjoyable, and I don't think like nonfiction, even if it might be like interesting or like something I will like give a high rating in the end, I don't think that's like what my brain needs right now. So I'm not gonna go with that. There is two books I'm kind of debating in between, because one book I think is gonna deliver more on that fun factor, but I don't have any guarantees that I will like it. And another one I don't think will be as fun, but I think the chances are high for me to really like that one. So I'm kind of debating what kind of the vibe I want to go for. But I will tell you about both of them. The first one is Beth is Dead, by, I completely forgot the author, Katie Burnett. This is a YA thriller mystery that is a retelling of Little Women. It came out earlier this month on January 6th, so it would be fun to get to, and it does have a really high rating on both Goodreads and Storygraph, but of course it literally just came out, so ratings can be a little bit skewed for that, and it is promising to be a fast-paced read, so that's an option. Another option is actually a book I started before winterween and I put down for winterween, and that is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a adult fantasy novel that has a mystery, like it's a mystery set in a fantasy world, I should say that. I read like a chapter of it, and then life got busy and then the readathon started, so I didn't get around to reading more of it, but quite literally everyone on my timeline loves this series, so that's why I wanted to give it a read, check it out. But I don't know how, like, I feel like there is a high likelihood for me to like give this a high rating, but I don't know if I'm looking for something fun, if this is necessarily like what that will deliver. But I am like leaning a little bit more towards this just because I have been reading it since like the start of the month and I should probably finish it. Okay, no, I've made up my mind. I'm going with The Tainted Cup. That's what I'm gonna be reading. So it is Thursday evening, which means we've reached the end of winterween because I'm going to bed, I'm tired. But I do need to say I read a whole entire book since I last talked to you, and the main reason why I haven't updated you on it is because I didn't like it and I'm depressed. Like, I so badly wanted a book I liked, just not even loved, just enjoyed a little. I don't know how to star out of it. That's The Tainted Cup by Barbara Jackson Bennett. This took me by surprise so much because, like I said, I've seen so many great reviews for this book, and then I did quite like it at the start. So I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This is what I needed. And then it's another really boring book. This one, like I said, is like a murder mystery set in a fantasy world. And in this book specifically, we follow Cole, who is a assistant to an inspector in his world, and he has like in this world like people can have like these enhancements and like special abilities therefore, and he got an enhancement that makes him remember stuff really well, and he can use like these different scents to help trigger those memories, but like specifically like they remember everything. And so the inspector he works for doesn't really like going outside, like she very often just like experiences like sensory overload, so she always sends him to a crime scene to kind of like see everything, interview people, and then report back to her, and then if like things do need her involvement she will get involved, but like that's typically how they solve things. And they are called in for a murder on a commander in this big mansion who just randomly started like a big ass tree grew out of him, and they just like can't figure out how, like they think this is a contagion but they can't figure out what contagion it is because it's not like anything they've encountered before, so they call in the inspector to kind of figure that out, and they very quickly realize that it's actually a poisoning. And then not very long after that 10 engineers also end up dying the exact same way, so they get called into like the big city to solve all of this going on, because of course they are already involved with like the smaller part of it, and it's so boring. I apologize. I thought it might be fun, but I should have known that when in the beginning there was such a large info dump on like the world, to the point where I was just like very confused and kind of like glossing over bits because I was just like, what's going on? There's just too much. I should have known that was a bad sign, even though I like the setup for the mystery. But ultimately, I think the mystery was just extremely drawn out. I feel like this could have been a novella. Genuinely could have. That's how little plot there is in this book. Yet it takes for fucking ever, and the amount of repetition as well in this book is insane. Like. They'll discover something and that will be repeated to like 10 different people, and then at a certain point that's forgotten about, and then we get back to it to solve because of this other thing that raised questions about this again, and we bring it up yet again. I was like, oh my god, I got so tired of it at this point. I was like, yes, get on with it. And then I feel like the characters were so underdeveloped. Like I don't know these people, so that's also like that didn't really help with feeling detached from the book. It's a 2-star though, not a 1, because I do think, even though I struggled with this a lot, there was a lot of potential in here. I do think there were some elements to it that are interesting. There was just so much about this that I did not like, that I felt undercooked, let's just say it that way. So yeah, that brings us to the end of Winterween, as I said. So let's do a bit of a wrap up. I am glad to report that I finished all 5 challenges. Of course, got them all checked off easily, no double ups. I read 6 books in doing this readathon, which is what I hoped for, but I did switch out one of the books on my TBR just because I really, my brain not functioning for another nonfiction right now. So I switched that out for another book. I would love to say I had a good time, but you know I didn't. Like, Winterween is a really fun readathon and I love it, and it deserves higher ratings than what this round got. Like, it was so messy. Like, I had 2 4s to begin with, so like we started off well, and then we have a 3, a 2, a 1, and another 2. That's not great. And I really wish I had some higher ratings, especially because like typically for Winterween I do sometimes have lower ratings because I take a risk. Like, mystery thrillers aren't necessarily like my genre, neither is horror, so I sometimes like take risks with the book I pick up in it because to kind of see what it will fit my cup, well, will be my cup of tea. Well, I will like, I don't fully know, so sometimes I take risks. I think for the most part this readathon I read books I was like really excited to read, and it sounded really up my alley, or it seemed really great reviews about. I think this is like the worst I've done rating wise for Winterween, so that's not great. It's really not great, but I didn't really like participating again this round, and I'm already super excited for the summer round, but also my brain needs a romance right now, so I'm not sad it's over. I was expecting to be really sad if it was over because I always am, but my brain definitely like requires a romance right now, so I'm gonna read a cute fluffy romance hopefully that I will give a good rating because I am sick and tired of all these low ratings. Like, generally I don't know what's happening to me, but there we go. That's my experience with Winterween. I hope you had a fun time. If you participated, let me know in the comments what you had for this readathon, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Good.
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated? Should've played it cool instead of made a fool.